eye out on because somebody has been stealing my avocados.
Uh-oh, was it you?
She knew very well, I know. She knew very well. I could tell by the way she looked at me like, yeah. And I think you probably know the guy. But she never accused me directly.
Hey ladies,
Yeah.
why don't you come say goodbye to Grandpa because he might not be here when you get back.
Oh, okay. Well, it was great to see you. I'm glad it wasn't slip and slide out there still.
Your
My
mom
head-
has the camera.
Where you headed off to?
We're going over to your son and in-laws.
Oh,
What is that? Your dad is recording himself.
he's gonna be using it against you some future years.
Oh no.
Very serious Tales from Cosio household.
Yeah. I think you need to hit your granddaughters up to take you out to what's your Black Bear before they
You
come
can't
back.
remember the name.
Yeah.
You can't make it.
Or Don Pedro's. You know, one of the two.
Well, it'd be nice to take her to, or go to the Black Bear, that way I could brag about the quality of my girlfriend.
Okay. Well, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yes.
May the odd years be better than the even ones.
Merry Christmas, Grandpa. Okay, get out of here, you two.
Good seeing you again. Don't get too wild and crazy up in Seattle either. Cause I have relatives live up there that will report you. And that goes for you too, Jeffrey.
I remember I have no idea what the Chinese food is like at the Chinese restaurant that Mom loved to go to. That she dragged me to in Mitchell.
Mayor Mitchell?
Yeah, what is it called, Twin Dragon? Little Dragon? Didn't they have like a takeout box, or they had some kind of Chinese motif on their sign?
Wasn't it the Twin Dragon?
Twin Dragon? Seems like it. I have no idea what the quality of that was in terms of Asian food.
I thought it was good, I mean,
Do you remember the guy in Mitchell downtown who opened a Chinese restaurant in the former Wonderland? And he took us in there and we all had chop suey. I remember thinking, this is not good food.
What?
Ask Gary.
well, you got an advantage in a place like that, the number of people are gonna be able to,
They said yes.
Okay, good.
Which car are you taking?
Lith. Thank you.
Yeah, who would know whether it's good Chinese food or
yeah.
not?
And some of them, they imagine it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine Mom probably ate real Chinese food in LA and Chicago. She probably had good Mexican food.
Yeah,
She definitely had probably tropical fruits, avocados and
well,
stuff.
that was in later years it changed there in South Dakota, but there was a lot of years like, especially like the 40s and 50s and even into the 60s where, you know, it was, rural America food and you didn't venture very far from it if you ran a restaurant because what good is it do to have some great dish if nobody's gonna eat it? You
Yeah.
know? And it's kind of funny that one of the main groups of people who weren't normally Midwest Americans that had quite a few restaurants were Greeks. But they had a lot of, I call it greasy spoon type food that probably was one of the reasons that they did okay, you know, because
Tastes like greasy casserole.
well, there was a lot of guys that, you know, a lot of people that thought if it wasn't meat and potatoes or something that went with it, it wasn't food, you know?
I still have friends who say, you guys are not doing meat, how do you eat? Here in Portland.
Yeah,
And they say, like my husband, if there's not meat in the meal, he doesn't think it's a meal. Like he feels like he has to have meat in the meal.
that would pretty much been true in South Dakota, especially during the summer when the guys were physically hardworking, is that very few meals, meat, potatoes were somewhere involved in the meal.
Yeah. So when you went down to Texas, can you recall like one of the first things you ate that you'd never had in South
Oh,
Dakota?
yeah, pretty much everything.
I imagine tons of seafood.
Well, even something as common as grits. I didn't know what the hell grits were. Like, you know, the name of it kind of put off to start with. And
And then you realize they're soaked in more butter than grits. And you go, okay, you can't be too bad.
and the biggest thing for me was, at that time, there was especially steak, they would eat rare, very rare, you know. And one guy had a saying that, he said, if it doesn't be able to bellow when it's done, it's overdone.
Oh, I cannot.
No, I
See, that's the thing, I don't, it's not that, I don't wanna say I miss meat, but there's some meat like, we'll take you to the German place over here sometimes. It's a German pub, and they do a sauerbraten, so this braised all day, falling apart. And that kind of meat, just, that's where I go, okay, I would eat that. But a steak to me is really tough, cause I don't like pink meat. And so then you're eating, you know, it's very difficult to have it still be juicy and tasty and not too pink.
Right, yeah. Well, see, I never knew what a pink piece of meat was.
Oh, yeah, cause grandpa,
Well,
Charcoal.
if it wasn't charcoal on the outside, it wasn't done, you know, so I go down to Texas and this guy invites me out for a barbecue and, you know, he flips this steak over and, I thought, well, now he's gonna cook, now it goes to the plate and I'm looking at this thing.
like maybe it goes in the oven? What's going on here?
I tell you what, that was one tough eat to eat that thing, but, you know, I got where I really liked it, I mean, 'cause it had a taste to it that was definitely at home, and, but, you know, well, I remember going back to South Dakota and telling my dad that, and he about threw his eyebrows off of his head.
How about, did you have, good, I assume that when you were growing up in South Dakota, they didn't really have Mexican food either. So did you have like, what would be considered Mexican food, burritos or tacos when you went down to Texas?
Oh, yeah, you couldn't escape it there, I mean, well, you could, but shoot, I was pretty adventuresome actually for food, because, that was one thing Marley, you know, he had been all over the world, so he was a lot more open-minded than probably 99% of the people around that area. And, so already I had eaten Mexican food when I was already junior in high school, because, he wanted to show me where he served in the army during World War II in Barstow, California, and out in Long Beach, you know, so.
You guys went to California when you were in junior high? Wow.
Over Christmas vacation.
Oh, nice.
He had just got a 58 Thunderbird, you know, and he didn't like to drive, so I got to be chief hot driver of a 58 Thunderbird that there's no way in hell I'd ever be,
Yeah.
you know.
Was
and,
Larry involved at all? Did
Huh?
Larry go?
That was your dad or Marley?
Marley. And, so you know, he had served in Barstow, California, in Long Beach, and he'd also served out in the desert in Nevada, and so he wanted to show me all those places. Plus, he knew an old guy, which this was pretty neat. He actually knew an old guy that was a little bit eccentric upstairs, and he built a place out in the desert called Scotty's Castle by the Death Valley area. And so Marley wanted to show me where that was at, you know, which is all right, pretty much on the way from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. And so we went by Scotty's Castle, Death Valley there. What he did is, after the war was over, there was surplus shit all over the place. Well, this guy quick to understand that, hey, you can get this surplus stuff for almost nothing from the military bases. So then he just took junk and put it together and built a castle, you know. I think it's probably still there today. I don't know, a guy could look on the internet, but I bet it's probably still there today. They probably had like a tourist attraction or something, or maybe somebody tore it down, I don't know. But,
When did you guys go to the Speed Flats? Was it on that?
that was coming back from Alaska. Yeah, that was the longest trip I'd ever been on in my life, 12,000 miles.
12?
12,000 miles.
I thought it was 6,000. It was 12,000 miles all in one shot?
Yeah, well, we didn't only go up to Alaska, we went all the way down to Baja, Mexico, and then came back up.
You went to the Baja? You went to Mexico?
Yeah, into across that by out by San Diego there,
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
down to Juarez, and
So you drove down the Baja, the thin strip there?
not all the way, but probably I don't remember anymore.
I've heard that that's just a really beautiful area.
It is, you know.
So what did your dad think about it? Because your dad and Larry, a lot of family probably never left South Dakota, right?
Well, they pretty well thought I was lost my mind, you know, which probably was truth anyway, but. Yeah, that was the busiest year of my life, because
How old were you?
I was just graduated from high school, and Larry didn't want to go down to Omaha to General Motors Training Center, so right away I graduated from high school in May, and then we went down to General Motors Training Center in Omaha, and we were down there 6 weeks, and we got back. Then that's when Marley and I headed for Alaska, and then when I got back, then that's when I went down to the University of South Dakota. So, you know, and for some crazy reason decided I wanted to play football there, so I made the team and played freshman football there.
That had to be, did you guys travel?
Pardon me?
Did you travel for games?
Yeah, we didn't go far. We only went, we played Morningside in Sioux City, and Augustana in Sioux Falls, and
Minnesota?
Brookings at South Dakota State. We only played 3 games. We were pretty much fodder for the main team for practice. And I mean, you talk about getting the shit beat out of you, you got plenty of that. But it was a good experience.
When did you, did you get drafted before you went out to California on that trip, or when you went,
Well, we originally never went, well, Marley might have planned it, but I never did. He had a brother living in, down by Brownsville in Texas, because his brother had arthritis, so he'd go south in the winter. So his brother would stay the winter down there in the Rio Grande Valley, so Marley needed a haircut, so he said, you know, I should go down there and have George cut my hair. Of course, you tell people that, you know, that are serious-minded, and then they look at you like, well, Mr. Sure, you're not right now.
Do you think Marley was just like, you know what, I was in World War II, I'm gonna live the life I wanna live?
Yeah, yeah, and no one, he was bachelor, he was free, and so when we got down there to Texas, he was telling George about some of the people that, you know, in World War II that he wondered how they're doing, and George says, well, why don't you go there and see if they're still there? And Marley said, I think that's a good idea. And these people were Mexicans, but they lived just across the border around El Centro there in California. So. Turned out apparently they had, that guy never went back. There was quite a few Mexicans that went into World War II in the American Army, you know, or American military, and of course, they got full citizenship when serving in the military. And, he apparently knew this guy pretty well because he went back. This guy, his parents had run a repair shop there. And I'm trying to think of the name of the town, right across from El Centro. And, Juarez, no, not Juarez, anyway, the family, there was no people with that name left, so apparently the business must have failed, or they decided to move on to just the factory, God knows what, you know. But at that time, that valley down in there around El Centro was a huge winter vegetable area for raising, selling in the Midwestern northern states. 'Cause there was miles and miles of celery, cabbage.
Where's El Centro again?
We went to San Diego, which is about as far south as you can go on the coast,
Yeah,
and then went east about 125 miles.
okay,
It's pretty well named because it's actually about halfway between the Arizona and
Right.
the Pacific Ocean border.
yeah.
But right down, I suppose it's not more than 10 miles from the Mexican
Yeah.
border. It is irrigation farming,
Yeah,
but they do irrigation in the wintertime, I suppose. I imagine they raise something in the summertime too, but it would be different crops. And they might even do it totally different today, I don't know.
So, how, wasn't Marley, friends with who were the guys, the basketball,
Oh,
tall,
Bob,
Parsons,
oh,
the
sorry.
Parsons brothers, didn't he, befriend them too, or was that?
Yeah, Bob and Terry both, and also, what was the brother's name? Anyway, there was 3 brothers,
Yeah,
and the their dad had problems, I think alcohol was the biggest problem, I'm not sure, but, never seemed to be able to hold a job, and,
is that why we knew the Parsons? Because I remember the Parsons brothers, especially Bob,
Because of Marley?
yeah,
oh
it seemed
yeah,
like,
because they, all 3 of them boys worked, Jim was the youngest one. Bob and Terry were very good in school, they were, and Jim, the third one, he didn't like school. And he always wanted to be a farm worker, and that's what he did. And,
didn't Bob go on and play basketball in college?
yeah, he
Yeah.
played for Dakota Wesleyan,
Yeah, and then he coached, I remember,
right?
it was weird, because here I'd grown up seeing these guys, and then all of a sudden I'm in a basketball game in East River, and he's coaching one of the teams we're playing, I'm like, I know that guy.
He actually went down to, there was the church, the Wesleyan church he was involved in, got together with some other churches, and they started a school down, there was a oil town in, Brazil, not down where the Amazon ends up, but where the Amazon starts, next to the Andes Mountains, probably not far from Ecuador. And this oil company, gave up on exploration, or the well went dry or something, the wells went dry, so they were gonna evacuate the area. Well, they gave, opportunity for different, charity organizations to buy the town. And, so the Wesleyan Church bought the town for nothing, you know, and, but they had a promise to keep the school going there. So that's what he did, he went down there,
Marley or the Parsons?
Parsons. Bob had a college
Did they
degree.
adopt a child?
Pardon?
Did they adopt a child from there? Did they adopt a child?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, okay.
yeah. And he was down there for, well, I think his wife was from Brazil. And he was down there for quite a while, and then he realized that, you know, certain amount of time passes and you become a citizen of that country. And, so they had to make a decision and they found this job as a coach in Custer. So they came back and he became a coach in Custer basketball.
Yep, that would be what I saw.
And,
So you drove, on your 12,000 mile trip, I recall you drove a Ford Ranchero and a Renault Caravelle, Wet Bar Dauphine. How many did you have one car, or did you swap cars, or how did you
no, we only took one car up to Alaska. It was,
well, you went down to Baja, right?
yeah.
Well, was it all one trip, or did you end up going back?
Well, on this particular trip was 1961, and I hadn't started college yet. I was just out of high school, and like I say, I spent part of the summer in Omaha, Nebraska, going to General Motors Training Center, because my brother didn't want to go down there alone, and the guy that ran the garage in Mitchell, the Chevy garage, volunteered to pay whatever small amount of money it took to send two people instead of one. And, but they only paid for the tuition of getting into school. They didn't pay for room and board or anything. So I am eternally grateful to McDonald's because Larry and I probably wouldn't have survived the summer without them. You could get a hamburger and a french fries for a quarter. Matter of fact, we had a penny left over, 24 cents.
I think McDonald's had a lot of room and board for a lot of college students.
But, oh yeah.
But the Ranchero, you and Marley took the Ranchero, you went down to Baja, and then you went up to Alaska?
No, we went up to Alaska first. We went up to Edmonton and then to Alberta. And then when we got let's say Edmonton, which already at that time was a pretty good sized city because it looked so out of place. Here we are driving for 2 days out in the sticks of nowhere, and all of a sudden you see something look like skyscrapers sticking out of the
Yeah,
ground.
so you went straight up north, so did you go through?
From Montana, we went through Great Falls,
Uh-huh.
and then up to a place called Cut Bank, which is kind of famous for having the coldest place in the United States sometimes. And then up to Alberta, to Calgary, and then up to Edmonton, and then we went northwest from there to Dawson Creek, British Columbia, and that's where we got on the Elkin Highway.
Oh my gosh,
And
which
then
was
went-
gravel still, right?
And then through the Yukon, and then Alaska, and then when we came back down,
Where did you go in Alaska, Anchorage or?
we went to Anchorage and Seward, and the place that I remember there was, I don't know, if you remember, there's a place called Turnagain Honor in Cook Inlet, and it's got the second highest tides in North America.
Yep.
And we were out there in the morning, on the way down, we went out on this, they had it was like mud flats.
Oh, yeah.
And we walked probably a quarter of a mile out.
Oh, no.
And had no idea that it was, we come back and now all of a sudden we see this ocean. where you've been walking. I tell you what, that's a pretty sobering experience when you realize, hey, I was out there 100 yards out there, and they said about 8 or 10 feet that when that comes in.
It comes in pretty,
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly. I know that they have a lot of, Coast Guard rescues, because people will get stuck on the mud flats.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
But-
not just because of the water coming in, because
You're sink down?
they're sunk down.
Oh, that'd be terrifying.
I remember Marley and I looking at each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy.
So did you ever get up to like Fairbanks, or did you?
No, we went from Anchorage, we went up through Matanuska Valley there, and then
She's
yeah,
been in that Matanuska Valley.
and Palmer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What was the purpose for going to Alaska?
Rocks.
Was those rocks?
Rocks, yeah.
Rocks in the head.
Pretty rocks.
you can just about imagine the conservative people there in Mount Vernon. And I think Marty
Are
did
you
it.
going for rocks? I give you some rocks.
Yeah, more than one farmer would come in and he'd have a rock in his pocket, and he said, Marley, you don't really need to go to Alaska, I got some rocks here you can have.
So from there you drove down, did you go like highway 101?
We came down right through the very middle of Alberta, or Saskatchewan, or British Columbia, I'm trying to say.
Took the Elkhorn down.
Prince Albert and Prince Rupert, I think, were two of the.
So,
And then you got down to the Seattle area, and then you went.
Yeah, and see, the World's Fair was going on that year.
Oh.
I mean, that's a really beautiful area that you're driving around in.
I can't remember, was that 64?
I tell you what, that Fraser River Valley is beautiful. If a person ever got a chance to go through there, it's beautiful.
So was that 64, the World's Fair, or Seattle, or?
61.
61,
Yeah,
same year.
yeah.
So you, and you got to see some of the World's Fair, or?
We just seen the, I'd never busy that summer, never read much of anything, and then I see this Space Needle sticking up there and wonder what in the hell is that? Yeah, but we just about, the closest we came on a whole trip to getting wiped out was right here in Oregon. Down right where the interstate ended before you got to the California border, and it went to two-lane road, kind of where it goes over that path there by, what is it, Grants Pass? And we were going up, and a log truck was coming down, and apparently he had overused his brakes. So he was taking the middle of the road was the center for him. And man, I'll tell you what, I barely had room to get over far enough to let that bugger go by. Because he was no way in the world he was gonna stop.
I'm gonna let you be the pie server.
So then when you went, where'd you go from, where'd you go after, did you stopped in LA?
No,
How'd you get
we had
there?
already been on a previous trip, we had already been to LA, because we went there before, so he could show me where he served at, by Long Beach there, and, what the heck was the name of that? There was a place there called Pure, can't remember it now.
How'd you get from, Oregon down to, Baja?
Well, we drove.
I know, but you must have stopped.
We went down through the middle of pretty much the middle of the state till.
Oh, you did go down,
Until we got to, the Bay Area, and then got over on California 1, that goes right along.
yeah,
the
I-5
road.
wasn't built then, was it?
It was, where it wasn't, it was 101, California 1 took the place of,
There was one and 101, yeah.
yeah.
That's a pretty drive.
Because Marty wanted to show me where, at that time, when he was stationed there, he had a Lincoln V12.
What?
V12 Lincoln. Oh yeah, and they were really
Is that a suicide door one, or
they had a 2-speed rear axle in it, which probably the only American car that I ever knew that ever had one.
that thing must have flown.
Pardon me?
That must have flown.
He made it from he was stationed there in Barstow, and he drove from Barstow back to South Dakota, and he said they didn't have radar yet then, right after the war was over. And he said, even if the cops stopped you and they see that you had your military uniform on, they never even bothered you. Yeah, the Lincoln V12, they
Did you-
were, I don't know, probably not very many left in the world.
Did you go fishing or Baja or any of that kind of stuff? Or?
No, no.
Where- Where'd you go after Baja?
Then we came back up and went to, ended up out in Vegas, and then,
Oh, thank you.
then when, I don't remember what the highway
Was
was.
there a big gambling still at that point?
It was, at that time, Vegas, I bet if it was 20,000 people would be bragging.
Gosh. Wow.
Pretty much it was casinos and hotels and
Yeah.
a residential area, just didn't exist much.
Mm. This is good.
And then where from Vegas?
And back up to, matter of fact, we weren't done yet. We went back up north to Reno, Carson City and Reno, and then we headed west or east and went through Rocky Mountain National Park.
Hmm.
And that, I don't know if you guys have been there, but it's a mighty high park. And if you've ever driven a car with vacuum wipers and it's raining out, and you're in the high mountains, well, you're in trouble.
I remember Steve and I driving up and getting past the mile marker, it said 10,000 feet. So we jumped out of the car and did push-ups,
Thank you.
just say we did it.
That's the only place in my life I ever seen a Marmot.
What?
Marmots?
Marmots?
They,
Belly marmots?
they look like a woodchuck
Oh, yeah.
for high altitude.
And then where next after that?
I think. Seemed like we went straight on east to, into Kansas, and then when we hit highway, it was highway either 183 or 83 that runs through western Nebraska, and then back to South Dakota.
How long was the trip?
So you were on some of the first, I'm sorry for interrupting, yeah.
How long was the trip?
About a month.
You were on some of those first Eisenhower highways in those interstates.
Yeah.
Weren't they built in like 59-ish or something?
A lot of the highway, a lot of the interstates, what you do is you drive on them for a while and then they end. I remember doing rock hunting out in Wyoming, out in the complete sticks. I mean, we're on frickin' 30, 40 miles from even a town. And here's this strange looking thing, and you know, you see something that don't even look like it belongs in this world. You gotta go up to it. And the guys that, they knew they were gonna build the interstate, they knew where they were gonna build it, but the contractors that built a lot of those overpass bridges, they were the first ones to get the money, so here was this overpass bridge built, and you got no road on any side, and sagebrush out here, and you're out driving an absolute sagebrush with barely a trail, and here's this thing that don't even look like it belongs in the world, sitting out in the middle of the sticks. First time that we were out there in a, what the heck we were called? There was Sweetwater agates was what we were after. And it's in the Sweetwater Valley, that's why they're named that. And went back, and after a while we learned not to tell people things like that, because then they thought you surely went over the deep end.
Military's like that too. There's a lot of weird stories in the military, and you'll share them with them, and you know, it sounds a little crazy coming out your mouth, or like they're looking at you like there's just no way.
Yeah.
But everybody's story is so different. You meet somebody in the military, any far-fetched thing, you believe it, because you know it can happen.
Well, pretty much there at that time, the standard reply you get is, what were you drinking at the time?
Yeah, you guys burned some gas.
Yeah, gas was
It was
21 to 24 cents a gallon at that time.
Wow.
Best gas mileage we ever made is when we drove that Renault Caravelle up to western New York, and then up to follow the St. Lawrence River to the ocean.
So was that Marley's or was that yours?
That was Marlin.
How the heck did he find a Renault in South Dakota?
And then they found it in Minneapolis.
It must have been like practically new then, it was like a couple years old then.
Yeah,
Is that how did he have Renault before he had VWs?
yeah,
Ah.
yeah, that Renault though, that made about 40 miles a gallon.
Wow.
But you know, we were up in Canada, I think we were by Montreal. Maybe not even that far. And we had, they had put a radio, aftermarket radio in, but we didn't know, but the early buggers, where they passed it on to the, you know, the old emission switches, they had a bunch of wires come in from the backside and they had a nut. Well, when they put the wire into the radio, they got too close to the wire that engaged the starter. Well, going down the road, and you ain't gonna hear this, that wire came over and engaged the starter and burned the starter out.
Oh,
So there you were, and you ain't gonna find no Renault starter for Renault Caravelle without special ordering it. But you could crank the engine. And the engine was in the
Like-
rear.
this, you mean?
Yeah,
You remember that?
the crank that cranked the jack up, the jack the car up, was also served as a crank to crank the engine.
It had a little hole in the back, in the
Yeah.
valance, and then you flip the rod open, and it had like a little T thing, and you stick it in
Yeah, you
there.
better be in shape to do that. it seems
Well,
like.
that's what I heard this story, that's what he's gonna tell the story.
We stopped in Niagara Falls, and I had this straw cowboy hat on, and cowboy boots on, and this mom and her kid was about 3 or 4 years old, walking across the parking lot. And I was just getting ready to crank the Renault, and here came this kid screaming, "Mama, Mama, cowboy!" And she was in hot pursuit, you know, worrying about a kid running across the parking lot. So she kind of upset at me, like I was the cause of the whole problem. I can still see that kid. He was out running Mom, because he was going to see a real-life cowboy. She had no sense of humor on the subject, so grabbed him by the arm and away they went. She was,
Is this when you cranked the car, or before?
yeah, I cranked that car. Molly didn't like to do it.
People must have thought you don't see that very often.
Well, the thing that made it look kind of ridiculous is because it was so low to the ground that I would get down on my knees and then, you know, you can imagine what this looked like here, the guy with the cowboy hat on, the cowboy boots, on his knees cranking his collar from the back. First of all, a great many people would have never realized that the engine was back there, you know, this guy probably lost his mind and they might not been too far off there, but
That's not a comfortable car to be driving that for.
well, you know, it was a convertible deal, so I mean, it was,
Yeah, but those seats are low, and
I think when you're young,
there was no foot space.
yeah.
you know, like now, I probably would be a very big concern, but at that time, I was damned and determined to see the world, and if it was being a Renault way, that's fine. A Renault Caravelle.
That's pretty crazy that you guys went to Alaska, to the far reaches of the United States, and not just the continental United States, down into Mexico. Did you do southeast anywhere?
Yeah,
You did Texas.
he bought the first Volkswagen in Montgomery,
Was the bug?
59 Volkswagen Bug.
Wow.
So,
Where'd you get it from?
the guy had been a mail carrier, but not right in that area. So he got a really good price on it, and so we redone the engine. And that time we went east to the Mississippi River in Iowa, and then followed the Mississippi River all the way to New Orleans. And then when we got to New Orleans, we went to Houston, and then down to the Big Bend National Park.
In the Volkswagen.
Yeah, and then we went to, there's a,
Wait, where's Big Bend National Park?
right on the Rio Grande River,
Okay.
about, probably midway between where it runs into the ocean and where it comes down from. And, from there we went, there was a observatory, and I'm trying to think of the name of it. There's a,
In Texas?
yeah, there's a set of mountains there, right in that area. The hell's the name of it now? I should remember. Seemed like it was the Guadalupe Mountains, but I'm not sure. And the mountain, where we were going, was the Mount Davis Observatory. But we had come across this bed of agates out in the middle of the desert of nowhere, and then nobody had ever written about them, just by accident. And we collected so many of them, and you know, the Volkswagen trunk is in the front. Well, this all was fine until we got to this on this road to go up the Mount Davis Observatory, and the Volkswagen didn't have enough room. So one of us would have to push, and the other one run the car.
So Big Bend National Park is right on the Texas-Mexico border. And, there's a observatory at the University of Texas, McDonald, near Fort Davis,
Mhm.
Mount Livermore.
So you weren't throwing out agates and everything on the way up, right?
No. Another funny thing was, the ranchers there, they had these gates, I've never seen them anyplace else. A big center post, and the gate swung two ways from the center post, and it had like a cable come down. Well, they all had these trucks with a big old bumper, most of them had a big old rubber tire, and they'd been opened up and nailed to the front. And they knew about what speed to come and hit that gate, and it would swing open and they'd go through, they didn't have to stop that way. Well, we tried with the Volkswagen, no, it ain't gonna work. So two of us could get the gate turned around far enough, so one would have to hop in the Volkswagen and get it through there quick before the other guy ran out of gas holding the gate open. I'm pretty sure some of the locals come by, they would probably turn us into an insane asylum.
Did Marley do many trips later in life after he,
Nobody else to ever convince them. I apparently was pretty good at telling them, telling them these fabulous rock stories that, and I think obviously he would have been pretty open to them, or he would have never listened to them. I was always reading these lapidary journals and those magazines to see whether it was.
also Marley wasn't into the rocks? He just, it was you were more interested in rocks than Marley?
He was very interested too, but, he probably didn't have as much time to waste studying about, every issue of the lapidary journal that I would get, why. And that was very strange that the lady that ended up being the editor of the lapidary journal, which was a pretty well-known national magazine, was right from South Dakota there, from some little one-horse town out West River.
So it looks like there's only one observatory in Texas,
That's,
the McDonald Observatory.
at that time, they called it the Mount Davis Observatory. Probably gotta be the same one.
Probably. So there's a university there,
Yeah,
does that sound right?
yeah, yeah. trying to think of the name of that town.
Hold on, let's see if we can see. Fort Davis, what did you say they called it? Mount Mount Davis?
Mount Davis, yeah.
Yeah, cause there's a Fort Davis right
Yeah.
there.
So maybe later on they changed, there might have been somebody that maybe bought it or donated a significant amount of money.
It says the facility is located on Mount Locke in Davis, in the Davis Mountains of West Texas.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which only makes sense, and you call it Mount Davis Observatory, I
Yeah.
guess.
Crazy.
It's surprising though how few people through the years that ever even knew that there was observatory in Texas or that we never heard of it. I mean,
Does seem like a perfect place to be, I mean.
well,
there's-
that's the reason they did it, because that
Right.
desert air was
Yeah,
real dry air.
and not very populated right there.
Right, and humidity actually distorts atmosphere for, you know, looking out into outer space and.
So what did you guys do with all your rocks that you collected over the years?
Here's some of them.
When we-
Seriously?
Yeah, you remember these?
Oh, yeah.
Is that from Marley's garage when he
Yeah.
passed?
It's a thunder egg.
No way, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
I don't know what that is. Is that like some kind of agate or?
So you just
Oh,
find
no,
these,
that's heavy.
you just find these big old rocks. Like a thunder egg and go, this is a rock we want.
Well, it's funny thing, but if you're a beginner, you go for the shiny,
Yeah.
which seems natural, you know, which is usually quartz of some kind, or mica schist, or, you know, a whole bunch of different things that all have a gleam or shine to it. And actually, it's something like this, that, but when you cut it on a diamond saw, then you see, you know, first of all, it's usually, you know, it's agate or opal or some kind of a material that's polishable. And
What's that
Do
with?
you know what's in here?
and agates, a lot of the agates that are most valuable are the ones that have very exact pattern that goes around, and say like it'll go around with a black, and then it'll have a light colored silica band, and then maybe, usually not more than 3 colors in them, but they're, the bands, like Fairburn agates from South Dakota were some of the most valuable, because the delineation between the bands are distinct. Like there's some rocks that they're agates, but like Lake Superior agates, they're pretty, but the bands are kind of like you took and blended a little bit, and they're not distinct.
What do you think this is made out of? This is pretty heavy, like you said.
It's definitely an agate of some kind, but I don't know. It almost feels heavy enough to have some hematite or something in it. So it's, for the size of it, it's heavy.
Yeah. Crazy.
It's a meteorite.
With a
It'd
former
be,
alien
yeah,
metal,
it'd be pretty,
superior metal.
Where did you get it from?
it'd be real estate. It came from your Marley
Okay,
garage.
yeah, of course, that could be, come from about anywhere in North America.
Well, this looks like, this is like a perfect missile, you know, this is,
Yeah, if you took and had somebody with a diamond saw inside, you'd really probably see some beautiful, because it's heavy enough that it's gotta be.
how do you know how to cut it? Like, you could, there's so many ways you could cut it. You could this way, that way, you know, there's all.
Well, there's some that you can look at and kind of get an idea, but a lot of them is just by pure chance.
Cause it looks like there's all kinds of like.
Yeah, that's what they usually do, is look and see if they can determine any particular grain, and then they usually wanna try to cut it across grain. Probably at one time was one of the most popular agates in the whole United States was from up in a river in Montana, and, Yellowstone River, what they call the Yellowstone River moss agates, or Montana moss agates, because they were almost like a creamy milk, white color, very good quality, the agate material, and they had been infiltrated at some point in time with what they call manganese, dendrite, that, in other words, the manganese had infiltrated into the stone, maybe when it was in the formation, and it made, that's where they got the name moss agates, because it almost looked like moss, but it would be like black moss against a white background. And sometimes it was, had iron in with it, which always made it a reddish color. And if the iron and the manganese got in the right portions, then it would make seams like it looked like a tree that was black, and then you had maybe like a red sunset behind it. And they had an amazing amount of variety. And every slab you cut through that stone would be slightly different than the next one.
I am feeling a food coma approaching.
I thought you were gonna say you wanted to go to rock salt, no, I'm cutting something.
I gotta go
We
sit
went
down.
to
and close
two
my-
different places.
I gotta go close my eyes for a second. Oh. You guys continue your conversation, I'm just gonna close my
Oh,
eyes.
you wanna go in the living room?
Sure.
One of the beer or anything, or no?
No, I'm collar good. Because I got too much troubles with heartburn at night.
Do you wanna take it easy with you?
No, because I don't have any way of cutting them.
Okay, well, maybe we can figure it out someday.
That, if you ever get a chance though, somebody with a saw, well, you might get somebody to saw that and be amazed what you see.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, you're a wonderful dog and all that. Is it okay if I sit on this over here?
Yeah.
You're a super dog. Best of the best. Yes, you are.